Every 2 years, the chess world narrows down to a single question. Who gets to challenge for the title? Not who is the best player on a given day. Not who won the most online blitz games. Not who has the biggest streaming audience. The question is simpler and far more brutal than any of that. Who, in 14 rounds of classical chess against the 7 strongest players on the planet, can outlast everyone else? That is what the candidates tournament is. It is the final qualification stage of the FIDE World Championship cycle. The last wall standing between an elite grandmaster and a shot at the crown. Win it, and you earn the right to play the world chess champion in a one-on-one match. Lose it, and you go home. Every game is played under classical time controls, 120 minutes for the first 40 moves, then 30 more for the rest of the game, plus a 30-second increment from move 41 onward. There is no speed chess to bail you out. Every decision matters. Every blunder echoes. The format is a double round robin. 8 players, each facing every other player twice, once with the white pieces, once with the black. 14 rounds in total. It is, by design, a marathon. Fatigue is a factor. Nerves are a factor. The weight of expectation across weeks of play is very much a factor. In the spring of 2026, the tournament was held at the Cap Saint-Georges Hotel and Resort in Pegea, on the sun-bleached western coast of Cyprus, a venue that managed to be simultaneously luxurious and entirely beside the point. Because once the games began, nothing outside the playing hall really mattered. The prize fund was 700,000 euros. But the players were not here for the money. They were here because the winner would get to do this: walk into a room across from the world chess champion and try to take everything he has. That champion was Gukesh Domoraju. And to understand why this candidates tournament mattered so much, you first need to understand who he is. Gukesh Domoraju is 19 years old. He is from Chennai, India. And in December 2024 in Singapore, he became the youngest undisputed world chess champion in history, breaking a record that had stood for nearly 4 decades, held by none other than Garry Kasparov. He started playing chess at the age of 7. He became a grandmaster at 12. By 17, he was the top-rated player in India, ending Viswanathan Anand's 37-year reign as the country's #1. Then he won the 2024 Candidates Tournament. Then he beat the reigning world champion, Ding Liren, in a 14-game match that came down to the very last move of the very last game. When Ding blundered on move 55, Gukesh sat frozen at the board for a long moment. Then he covered his face with his hands and wept. That is who these 8 players were trying to reach. So, who were they? Fabiano Caruana, 33 years old, American, rated 2795, the 3rd highest rated player in the world coming into the tournament. He qualified by winning the 2024 FIDE circuit, a year-long series of elite events demanding consistency across an entire season. Caruana has been at the top of world chess for over a decade. He played for the World Championship in 2018, drawing all 12 classical games against Magnus Carlsen before losing in rapid tiebreaks. He had returned to the candidate stage multiple times since. The question surrounding him was one the chess world had been asking for years. When does Caruana finally break through? Hikaru Nakamura, 38 years old, American, rated 2810, the 2nd highest rating in the field. Nakamura is one of the most recognizable figures in modern chess, combining elite over-the-board credentials with an enormous presence in online chess and streaming. He qualified via the rating path, holding the highest average classical ratings among eligible players over the 6 months from August 2025 to January 2026. The path he took to meet that threshold generated significant debate. But Nakamura was here, and his credentials on the board spoke for themselves. R. Praggnanandhaa, 20 years old, Indian. He secured his return to the candidates, having competed in the 2024 edition as well, by winning the 2025 FIDE circuit through consistent results across multiple top-level events. A key member of India's Chess Olympiad gold medal team, Praggnanandhaa had already shown he could compete at the absolute highest level. At 20, with a full career ahead of him, Cyprus represented another major step upward. Anish Giri, 31 years old, Dutch. A grandmaster since the age of 14, Giri has spent more than a decade competing at the very top of chess, known for his deep opening preparation and remarkable consistency. He qualified by winning the 2025 FIDE Grand Swiss in Samarkand, finishing first outright in a large, fiercely competitive field. Giri arrived in Cyprus with the profile of someone who had been close to the summit of chess for years and was not willing to wait much longer. Matthias Bluebaum, 28 years old, German. A player known for his positional understanding and resilience, particularly effective in formats demanding sustained focus over long events. He secured his candidate's place by finishing second at the 2025 Grand Swiss in Samarkand. For Bluebaum, this was his first appearance at this stage of the World Championship cycle. Wei Yi, 26 years old, Chinese. A long-hyped prodigy who first attracted widespread attention as a teenager with a brilliant attacking game against Levon Aronian back in 2015. Wei had spent years on the edge of the elite, consistently performing at a high level without quite breaking through to the top tier. He qualified by finishing runner-up at the 2025 FIDE World Cup in Goa, India. Cyprus was his long-awaited opportunity. Andrei Esipenko, 23 years old, playing under the FIDE flag as Russian players have since 2022. Esipenko first drew worldwide attention as a teenager when he defeated Magnus Carlsen in a classical game at the Tata Steel Tournament, one of the most famous upsets of recent years. He qualified by finishing third at the 2025 World Cup, winning the third-place match after a major comeback from an early setback. He arrived in Cyprus with something to prove. And then there was the eighth player, Javokir Sindarov, 20 years old, from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. He qualified by winning the 2025 FIDE World Cup in Goa, defeating Wei Yi in the final to claim the title. At 19 years, 11 months, and 18 days old at the time of that victory, Sindarov became the youngest World Cup winner in history. For most casual chess fans, his name was not yet familiar. That was about to change. The tournament opened on the 29th of March with 4 games and immediately announced itself as something different. 3 of those 4 games were decisive. 3 players won in round 1: Caruana, Sindarov, and Praggnanandhaa. Caruana outplayed Nakamura after the American drifted in a complicated middle game. Nakamura missed a crucial saving resource and had to resign. Praggnanandhaa surprised Giri with a rare Grand Prix attack, achieved an opening advantage, and converted cleanly. And Sindarov, despite getting a poor position against Esipenko early on, survived when Esipenko miscalculated a critical line and wound up losing. 3 winners. Round 1. The playing hall was already paying attention. Round 2 brought 4 draws, a brief moment of equilibrium. Then round 3 hit, and the tournament cracked open. Caruana won again, dismantling Wei Yi in just 19 moves after the Chinese player allowed his own bishop to become completely trapped. Sindarov, meanwhile, sacrificed a piece for 2 pawns and a lasting initiative against Pragnanandha's king, playing into complexity that he handled better than his opponent. When Pragnanandha blundered in mutual time pressure, Sindarov collected his second win. After 3 rounds, Sindarov and Caruana shared the lead, a full point ahead of the field. Then came round 4. The 2 leaders faced each other directly. Sindarov defeated Caruana in a Queen's Gambit accepted, out-preparing the American so thoroughly that he established a time advantage of over an hour on the clock. At 3.5 points from 4 games, Sindarov had achieved the fastest ever start in the modern double round-robin candidates format. That record had stood since 2013. He shattered it in his first appearance. In round 5, Sindarov added a 3rd consecutive win, out-preparing Nakamura in the Marshall Gambit. 5 of the first 6 rounds. 5 wins. The chess world, which had not quite known what to make of the young Uzbek coming in, was now using a different word for him. Windarov. It started as an online joke, a meme, and then became something else entirely. A legitimate description of what was happening on the board. By the halfway point of the tournament, after 7 rounds, Sindarov stood at 6 points from 7 games. 6 out of 7. No winner of a candidates tournament had ever reached the halfway mark with that score in the modern format. The previous best, Ian Nepomniachtchi's 5.5 from 7 in the 2022 candidates in Madrid, had seemed remarkable at the time. Sindarov had blown past it. His closest pursuer was Caruana, 1.5 points behind. In any normal candidates, a player 1.5 points back with 7 rounds to play would be considered very much in the race. But Sindarov had not simply been winning. He had been winning with a style that suggested it was not luck. He had been out-preparing his opponents, outplaying them positionally, and surviving complications better than anyone else in the room. At the press conference after round 7, Sindarov was asked what he and his coach had hoped for coming into the tournament. He laughed and said they would have considered +1 at the halfway point to be very good. Then he laughed again. The second half of the tournament began with Sindarov still at the wheel. Round 8 saw him hold Esipenko to a draw with the black pieces, sacrificing a pawn on move 20 to seize control of the light squares in a Catalan, controlling the game so thoroughly that Esipenko could only find a draw by repetition after spending nearly half an hour searching for something better. Round 10 was the moment that confirmed the record books would need updating. Playing with the white pieces against Pragnanandha, Sindarov sacrificed a piece for 2 pawns and an attack, an aggressive, uncompromising decision that had his entire coaching team watching nervously from the sidelines. He admitted afterward that he had come into the day planning to play something solid, to cruise, to keep his lead. "I'll just play something solid and draw all my remaining games," he said he had told himself before the game. 1 hour later, he was sacrificing a piece. When the dust settled, Sindarov had his 6th win of the tournament, the most wins any player had recorded in the modern double round-robin candidates format. He had broken that record too. "My team will really hate me after this move," he said after the game, grinning. "But okay, it works very well." At this point, Sindarov led Giri, who had emerged as the second-place player after a strong second half, by 2 full points. With 4 rounds to go, the mathematical situation was brutal for everyone behind him. They would need to both win their remaining games and hope Sindarov collapsed entirely. Neither scenario seemed likely. Round 11. 4 draws. Sindarov's lead remained intact. Round 12. Sindarov drew quickly with Nakamura. His lead remained 2 points. Giri drew Wei Yi in a long, complex game that never yielded a real advantage. The gap between first and second did not move. Round 13. The game between Sindarov and Giri. A draw was enough for the leader to clinch the title with 1 round to spare. Over 58 moves, Sindarov played what the computers would later assess at 99.5% accuracy. Essentially, a perfect game. Giri pushed, tried different plans, looked for any weakness. There was none. When the game ended in a draw, Sindarov had done it. He stood from the board, the youngest player in the field, and became the candidates tournament champion of 2026. His final score, after the concluding round 14, a quick 31-move draw with Wei Yi, was 10 points from 14 games. 6 wins, 8 draws, 0 losses. The 10 from 14 was the highest score ever recorded in the modern candidates format, beating Ian Nepomniachtchi's 9.5 from the 2022 tournament in Madrid. Sindarov won the tournament by 1.5 points. Anish Giri finished second with 8.5, Fabiano Caruana third with 7.5. Behind them, the standings told their own quiet stories. Wei Yi ended on 7 points, Nakamura on 6.5, Bluebaum and Pragnananda on 6 each, and Esipenko, who had qualified dramatically through the World Cup and been regarded as a danger to anyone in the field, on 4.5. None of that mattered much in the end, because one player had lapped the field so completely that his nearest competitor finished 1.5 points back. The question of who would challenge Gukesh had been answered with unusual authority. He was born on the 8th of December, 2005, in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. He discovered chess early. By the age of 5 or 6, he was already winning city and regional youth tournaments. By 9, he had earned the FIDE candidate master title. By 11, he was an international master. And then, in October 2018, at the age of 12 years, 10 months, and 8 days, Javokir Sindarov became a grandmaster, the second youngest in history at the time. Only Sergei Karjakin had done it faster. The chess world noted the achievement, filed it away, and moved on. Prodigies earn titles young all the time. The question is always what happens after. What happened with Sindarov was a patient, methodical rise that accelerated sharply once he committed fully to chess in 2021. The same year, notably, that his teammate Nodirbek Abdusattorov won the World Rapid Championship, putting Uzbekistan firmly on the global chess map. In 2022, at just 16 years old, Sindarov was part of the Uzbekistan national team that won gold at the 44th Chess Olympiad in Chennai, India. On board 2, he contributed 6 wins and 2 draws in 8 games. Uzbekistan, a country that had invested heavily in chess infrastructure since Rustam Kasimjanov won the 2004 FIDE Knockout World Championship title, announced itself to the chess world as a genuine superpower. And Sindarov was one of the teenagers who made it happen. He crossed the 2700 ELO threshold for the first time at the end of 2023, a significant milestone. the unofficial entrance fee to the world's elite. Then came 2025 and the World Cup in Goa. He won it in his final against Wei Yi, the same Wei Yi who would sit across from him again at the candidates. Sindarov closed out the match and, at 19 years, 11 months, and 18 days old, became the youngest World Cup winner in history. Ahead of Peter Svidler, ahead of Levan Aronian, ahead of every legend who had ever lifted that trophy. That World Cup victory earned him his seat at the candidates. And then, in Cyprus, he used that seat to do something that had never been done before. His playing style is built on aggression and complexity, creating positions where there are multiple threats, where precision is required at every move, where a single inaccuracy by the opponent becomes a sentence. In youth chess, he had relied on sharp tactical ideas and peace sacrifices. As he matured, he added strategic depth, the ability to find winning resources, even in positions that looked equal, to press without overextending, to hold when holding was necessary. He was also, if the candidates is any indication, a preparation machine. He had come to Cyprus with a coaching team led by Roman Vidonyak, whom he had begun working with in January 2025, and a second in Mukadin Madaminov. Along with two others he declined to name until after his World Championship match with Gukesh. Nearly every opening surprise that shook the tournament had came from Sindarov's side of the board. After his candidate's victory, Uzbekistan's president, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, personally presented Sindarov with the Order of Labor Glory, one of the country's highest civic honors. In Tashkent, the celebrations were not quiet. He was 20 years old. The 2026 World Chess Championship is provisionally scheduled for late November through mid-December 2026, with the host city still to be confirmed. It will be Gukesh Domaraju versus Javokir Sindarov. The reigning world champion is 19 years old. The challenger is 20. It will be, by a wide margin, the youngest World Chess Championship match in modern history. The previous record was held by Kramnik versus Topalov in 2006, when both players were 31. In 2026, both players will be 20. Chess has been played at the highest level for centuries. The names carved into its history, Kasparov, Fischer, Karpov, Tal, Anand, span generations and continents and eras. And yet, somehow, in 2026, the two men sitting down to contest the World Championship will not yet be old enough to have played in a single one of those eras. They belong entirely to the present. Gukesh had to survive 14 games against Ding Liren, one of the great champions of his generation, to become world champion. He had to wait for a blunder on move 55 of game 14, heart-hammering, before the crown was his. He has since had to carry it, and everyone in the chess world is watching to see whether he can defend it. Sindarov, meanwhile, arrives as a challenger who did not merely qualify, he dominated. He set records. He did not give his opponents a path back into the tournament. He was, from round 1 to round 14, simply the best player in the field. But a match against the world champion is a different animal from a tournament. It is one-on-one. It is 14 games of classical chess. It is psychology, preparation, adaptation, nerve. The Candidates Tournament of 2026 told us who Sindarov is on his best days. The World Championship will tell us who he is when the margin for error disappears entirely. Chess is not just thinking. It is enduring. It is sitting across from another human being who wants what you want, and finding, somewhere in the position, a reason to believe you can take it from them. For the first time in recorded history, that contest will be fought between two players who are both 20 years old. The next chapter begins in late 2026. Gukesh Domaraju is waiting. Javohir Sindarov is coming.